Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday morning Mortgage Coach coaching call. Every Tuesday morning, we're here to deliver the mortgage industry's absolute best weekly sales meeting. My name is Dave Savage. I'm the CEO of Mortgage Coach, and it's always an honor to lead this group of the 5% best loan officers in America. You know, we're not interested in having every loan officer use Mortgage Coach. We're interested in having loan officers that, first of all, care about delivering great advice and value to home buyers, and care about delivering the absolute best sales presentation they possibly can. Every Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock Pacific. Every Thursday, 9 o'clock, we're teaching strategies and we're getting into the technology of how to deliver what we talk about on our Tuesday calls. And then again, if you're new to the Mortgage Coach community and you've created less than 20 Mortgage Coach experiences, come to the basic program. We're there to help you get 5 TCAs over the next 5 days. So if you're on this call and you've added someone else to your team, send them to our Friday course. 9 o'clock Pacific, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. We're here to give value to you guys. Again, if you're new to the Mortgage Coach community, make sure you connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn. This coaching call will be added to our YouTube page within hours. And I'm still playing with Twitter a little bit. So make sure you connect with us on social. And absolutely make sure that you subscribe to the Mortgage Coach page. Every coaching call like this one, we post it within hours. Andy Tuttle's call, we had 400 of you guys on that call, and we're approaching over 100 of you that have watched the recording. Make sure you check it out. It was a great call. Andy Tuttle is closing a lot of business. He's doing a lot of things right, and I thought his call was awesome. One of the things I wanted to do as a follow-up before I bring in today's guest is just remind everybody about one of the big learnings I had from Andy, is his why. When I asked him, why are you using Mortgage Coach? Why are you on this call and you're a Mortgage Coach member? He had a really clear and concise bullet points. I'm doing it because it's right by my clients. I'm doing it because it makes me look good. I'm doing it, and the list goes on. So I just want to remind everybody, I hope you got really intentional and follow up to what is your why you're a Mortgage Coach member and that you're using Edge. And I want to encourage anybody from last week's call that has really got more clear on your why, put it in the Q&A section. We want to know what your why is. Why are you on these calls? Why do you use Edge? Why are you a Mortgage Coach member? Because one of my pet projects right now is collecting all these why statements. And so far in the couple weeks that I've been doing this, I've noticed that the most successful loan officers, the people that have really established great habits with Mortgage Coach, the why is powerful and it's long. And when I talk to new loan officers or loan officers that have been in our community for a year, but they haven't really got the success, the why is, it doesn't come easy and it certainly isn't long. So let's build those why statements as a follow-up to last week. So I've got 2 awesome guests. For the first 10 minutes or so, we're going to have Todd Duncan. I don't even need to give a backstory on Todd Duncan. Everybody in our community knows Todd Duncan. I think what's relevant to having Todd on this call is his passion for Mortgage Coach, his passion for high trust selling. This was a survey question last week where we asked you, are you CCing the realtor on your Edge reports? 66% said yes, 34% said no. Guys, I hope if I ask that poll right now, I get a better result of yes. And anybody who hasn't already, make sure that you drive the Duncan experience and Edge. By the way, if Todd's going to re-record it later today, check out what he did early today, check out what he does later today to really understand how Todd thinks you should be driving Edge. So Todd, I know you came in here, you got some upcoming events that we want to make sure people know about. I know that you recently recorded a webinar in the Mortgage Coach or Mortgage Mastery Club. Why don't you frame that video and let's tell everybody about your events that are going on.
Sure, Dave. Thanks, and hi, everybody. Good to be back online with you, and looking forward to Anthony's contribution as well. So one of the things that I'm really clear on is that there's 3 things that matter in the life of a loan officer that really, really matter. One is that you have unpenetrable relationships with your agent partners. I mean, absolutely critical. It is a mandate going forward if you're going to own the purchase market and own continued cash flow to your business. Number 2 is the borrower experience. And mandated today is creating a unique and valuable experience for your borrower and really starting to look at how well you do in the conversion area. And so one of the things I did is I talked to one of our mutual clients, the Duncan Group and Mortgage Coach, and I built a webinar presentation on the 7 best practices of edge users with high trust. And I literally went to people, talked to them, and built scripts, built strategy, built step-by-steps, ideas around using edge, using high trust as a methodology. And the people that we have test-driven this on, it's not uncommon to watch them, Dave, double their buyer conversion to application in about 30 days or less. So that's kind of the first exciting thing that I did, and everybody that's going through these 7 best practices are really finding the kind of the horsepower. It's like the nitrogen, in your car when you add these 2 things together.
Love it, Todd. Appreciate you doing that. Everybody, if you're not already, make sure you subscribe. Pay attention to Todd Duncan's blog. He's putting out great content at theduncan.com. And Todd's got a number of things coming on. In May, he's got the boot camp coming up. So May 6th and May 9th, Todd's boot camp is coming up. As everybody knows, we've got Sales Mastery. Last year was the 20-year anniversary. Really looking forward to the 21st Sales Mastery in September, Todd. But I know the big focus of today is kind of letting everybody know about your Sales Mastery Tour. You're going to be in 10 cities over the next few months. If you first would mind giving us the backstory to this Mastery Tour, and then we'll kind of go through what cities you're going to be in and just remind everybody so that they can see you there. And then again, myself or Joe Patur, our president, are going to also be at this 10-city tour.
Yeah, so the backstory is we really want to make the Sales Mastery Bootcamp an off-the-chart experience. And so, we sold out last time. We're going to sell out this time. And the testimonials coming out of boot camp are insane. Within 90 days, like, for example, Denise Donahue, doubled her purchase closing volume in 90 days or less by coming to boot camp. So what we thought we would do is do a tour, pick 10 of the best cities in America. We partnered up with Scotsman Guide and then obviously our partners like you, Dave. And we're going to roll around the country in the next 75 days. We're going to do a really fast-paced 3.5-hour workshop. It's guaranteed to double your purchase business in 90 days or less. And I'm going to specifically be talking about immediately implementable techniques, tools, and strategies. A couple highlights. I'm going to talk about 3 specific techniques to triple, listen to this, triple the amount of qualified buyers you get from agents in 4 weeks or less. So that's one of the big takeaways. I'm going to talk about 4 specific strategies to increase your conversion and capture rate to applications and drive that as high as 75%. If you remember Mastery last year, Dave, you and I led a panel of 3 mega stars, and these guys were all between 65 and 80% capture of pre-quals to applications. And then I have to tell you something. I've interviewed 100 real estate agents. I've had a conversation with them that takes about 10 minutes, and I'm going to teach this conversation. And the promise is, as soon as you have this conversation with an agent, they will eat out of your hand. They will do anything you want them to do. They will become your referral partner extraordinaire. 3.5 days. And Dave, what makes this special is anybody that comes to the Sales Mastery Tour, we're going to give them a free 90-day enrollment to the Mortgage Mastery Club, which is our vault-centric best practices website. And by the way, if you go to the Mortgage Mastery Club, that is where the webinar is that I did featuring the 7 best practices of using Edge and using high trust selling. So that's a kind of a flyby. We hope that the thousands of people that come to the tour will get excited about Sales Mastery this year, which you're, Dave, an integral part of helping drive content. And man, it's $99, 10 cities. You'll make your money back in about 2 minutes as soon as we get started. Not that that's anybody's concern, but we're excited about the tour, and it's good to have partners like you helping us promote it, Dave. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, I think just access to that 45-minute call is probably worth $99, Todd, in all honesty. It's probably worth a lot more than that if you actually listen to it 3 times, take action on it, and implement it into your work process. It's worth loans. So
Well, I'll just tell you something. Let me tell you something right now. The head of production of the company that I had a conversation with around this said it was game-changing. Another client said when I presented it to them, it was the best webinar they've ever attended. And I say that with appreciation, Dave, for you and Edge, because it was us. It was High Trust, it was Edge, and it was perfectly integrated. So we're excited to have this community take a look at that webinar.
All right. So, hey, William Mann, thanks for the question. William just said, hey, what are the 10 cities? And it's so interesting you asked that, William. I happen to have a couple slides on that. So April 2nd, Todd's going to be in Chicago. And I'm sorry, 22nd, everybody. Don't listen to me. Just look at the slides. Whatever I say, slides are more important. May 14th, Todd's going to be in Boston. May 16th, New York, New York. Todd, anything you want to add to those 3 cities?
We're just picking strategic cities that we know we've got good followership and penetration on, and no, I think it's self-explanatory. So just you can show the rest real quickly. There you go.
Yeah, May 21st, Orlando. Joe Patur lives on both coasts, so Joe, our president, will be at that one. May 22nd, Houston. So Todd, obviously you're not leaving a lot of time. You're on the move. June 11th, 2 days before my birthday, everybody. Just remember, Dave Savage's birthday is June 13th. Todd's going to be in San Francisco. I think I'm going to hit that one since I want to go celebrate my birthday in San Francisco. June 13th, I might not want to go to San Ramon for my birthday, so I might have Joe do that one. I think we need to move those 2 around, Todd.
That's funny.
San Francisco for my birthday would be better. San Diego, June 20th. June 25th, Phoenix, Arizona, and then closing it out close to home, just a drive from Todd's home in Newport Beach, June 27th. So folks, here's my recommendation. I mean, this is going to be incredibly valuable. Don't miss this. If there's one that's driving distance from you, go buy the ticket today. It's $99. Just, make a decision and then make it right. Obviously, not only are you getting access to this event, but you're also getting an awesome call that Todd did that, and I'm serious, that in itself is worth the $99. So if you can't make it to one of these events, buy a ticket and give it to someone in the industry that you care about. It'll be a great gift from you to them. Todd, I want to make sure we bring in our next guest. Anything else you want to say to the Mortgage Coach community before we bring in our special guest of the day?
No, only to say that the intent of this is to add massive value to your life. Matt Emery and I came up with the idea of giving the club away for 3 months because we believe that if you go through a 90-day process focused around High Trust and then using tools like Edge, it'll change your life forever. And so, it's my hope that you see this as a really cool offering. Point of entry is really, really low, and we want to change some lives. So thank you, Dave, for letting us come on for 10 minutes, and looking forward to Anthony.
Right on. Hey, William, thanks again for the question and for the kudos for Jacob. Just got a comment from one of our members saying Jacob Gibbs is great. That made my day, and I'm sure it made your day too, Jacob. So hey, Todd, thanks for making time to come and do a coaching call. I look forward to seeing what you come up with in an Edge report. So everybody put Duncan into the Mortgage Coach Edge report later today, and you're going to see a new message from Todd Duncan around what he thinks and how he thinks you should be using Edge Mobile. Thanks a lot, Todd.
You bet.
All right. So time for our next guest. This will be the 3rd time in a Mortgage Coach coaching call. He's got a blog that I read all the time. I mean, there's a lot of blogs out there. There's a lot of content out there. So much of it, I think, is just noise. But every once in a while, you find someone really special that I think is writing from the heart. And everything that Anthony says, I'm just like, boom, this was valuable reminder for me, or I learned something new. And it's something that I share with my team so that we can grow Mortgage Coach and sell to more, executive teams. So the call is going to be around building your playbook, creating a winning sales plan. Anthony, welcome to the call, my man. Anthony, are you here? All right. Jacob, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Dave. It looks like Anthony may have dropped off the audio. It's showing that he's left the call for some reason.
Huh. Okay. Well, I have a feeling Anthony will figure out how to get back on the call quickly. By the way, Todd Duncan, are you still on the call? So I was going to riff with Todd for a little bit. Well, let's see how quickly Anthony can get in. I'm going to do a survey question. I'm going to give a little bit more backstory on Anthony. He is a speaker, primarily speaks to companies that are selling B2B. So companies like Mortgage Coach, where we have a solution, we're selling it to other executive teams. I think where he adds a lot of value to the Mortgage Coach community is that part of your sales, not just to borrowers, but it's to referral partners, whether that's a real estate company, whether that is a CPA financial planner organization, whether you want to sell to corporations to get referrals. Anthony, you made it back, man.
I'm here. Yeah, I must have been muted, but I was there the whole time.
All right, well, we can hear you now. I do have one more survey question before I pass you the torch and go through your teaching. I did want to push a survey question to know how many of you actually have documented your sales process. So when I say, what are your playbooks, how do you approach a realtor? How do you get a meeting with a realtor? How do you deliver a wow presentation with edge? Do you have a documented playbook? I come from sports myself, so I love the sports analogy, thinking of football plays. Do you have a playbook for how you get a meeting and how you blow the mind of a realtor? Yes or no? By the way, 35% of you have voted. I really need over 70% of you to vote. So come on, guys. Let's give me your vote. Do you have a documented sales process? And maybe that's too big of an ask. Do you just have some basic checklist documentation on how you get the meeting and blow the mind of a realtor when you get that meeting? Yes or no? So
we're all friends here, right? There's no shame.
Yeah. So, Anthony, how do you think people are going to vote on this? What do you think the survey results are going to show us?
I think we end up with less than 50% and probably somewhere close to about 25% of people who actually have a documented sales process. That's my experience. What do you think?
I happen to see the vote. Here's the survey, and the results are in. 27% said yes, 73% said no.
Not too far off.
That's amazing. So guys, that's what this call is all about. This call is about turning these numbers around. I mean, seriously, it is so important that you guys take the time to document. I mean, this does not have to be a big manual. I'm talking about 2 pages, maybe 3 pages of this is how we sell to realtors. This is what the borrower conversation looks like. Hey, Todd Duncan, are you still on the call by any chance?
You bet, and I am just jacked up on that poll.
I kind of had a feeling you would be.
And Anthony's so right on, and there's, from my vantage point, not to take up any real time, but, we have it broken down to 8 different specific steps, to make a high trust sales call. And at about step 4, all the way to the end, the results go, in terms of effectiveness, all the way down to 15%. So that means fully 85% of people out there selling do not have a sales process that's effective.
Well, I guess if nothing else, guys, Anthony's gonna share some reasons why you should, and he's gonna share some feedback around what documentation should look like. So you got Todd Duncan for exactly what to say, what to do, what your sales process should be, and you got Anthony to talk about how to document it. So Anthony, go ahead and take the screen and share your vision to the mortgage industry about what they should be doing and how they could document their plays.
The last thing in the world you want is me and Todd Duncan talking to you about sales process and documentation today. I mean, if you're not there, by the end, you will be. It's so important to your success and to the success of your team. But first, before we do that, I've got to go back to one thing. And I'm free to play here for a minute, right, Dave?
Oh, let's go.
Let's talk about $99 as an investment. Unbelievable. And I have salespeople all the time ask me how they can get better. And it's shocking how few people will invest in themselves. I've written this before, but I bought Neil Rackham's first book, Spin Selling, for something like $25, and his second one, Major Account Sales Strategy. Those two books combined cost me under $50 and about maybe 8 hours of reading. But the application of those books have helped me build a $45 million business just by what I picked up in a couple books. For $99, your ROI is immeasurable. It's going to be measured in thousands of percents greater revenue for you and profit for you. Don't miss that. It's one of the best things you can do is spend 3.5 hours with somebody like Todd. And I'm a huge fan, he knows this, I've said this to him, of high trust selling. Trust is the name of the game, and I was in from the first chapter, which I'll never forget, which is the law of the iceberg, if I'm right. Am I right, Todd?
You are so right.
Yeah, and it's what's underneath there. It's about character. And I'll set this up by sharing a story. I was with an executive vice president of sales in another country speaking to his sales organization, and he was a little frustrated. And he said to me, I hate my salespeople. They suck at closing. They don't know how to negotiate, and I want to fire all of them and start over. And I let him vent for a little while, and after he was done venting, I said, okay, I get it, and I agree with you. What are we going to do with the third group? And he said, I don't know what you mean. What's the third group? And I said, after we fire all these people and replace them with the second group, and then we fire them for the same reason we're firing this group for, what are we going to do different when we get to the third group? And he said, all right, I get it. What is it that you're saying? And I said, here's what I'm saying. You have an obligation to your team, and you have obligations to yourselves and your teams as individuals and as leaders here, to give people the tools, the training, and the technology that they need to succeed. And what you've got here on the phone with you is people who provide you with the tools and the training and the technology that allow you to equip your team to go and win. And he got it and he understood what I said, even though it made him uncomfortable. The point that I was making is that until you arm your team with what they need, you're not giving them the tools and the technology and the training to succeed, which means you're to blame. And ultimately, you have to look yourself in the eye and say, did I give them everything that they needed to succeed? And I love this idea of a playbook, because if you look at professional football or even college football, each team, when they get a new player, and they go out and spend a ton of time and money figuring out who to draft and how to draft them, and these people have a ton of promise, but the first thing they do when they get them is they hand them a giant playbook, and that is every play that the team runs to succeed. And they don't expect that player to be able to walk onto the team and just succeed right out of the gate. They expect to spend time with them, teaching them the plays so that they know how to execute, so they know how to do what they need to do to win. If the player doesn't know how the play is supposed to go, then the player fails. They make mistakes, and it's not because they're a bad player. It's not because they're not a great athlete, and in our case, it's not because they don't have the attributes that could make them a great salesperson. It's just they don't know what their responsibility is on each and every play. They haven't had a chance to rehearse those plays. You just heard Todd say there's 8 plays for you. If there's 8 plays for you, and I know the 8 plays backwards and forwards, and you don't know the 8 plays, I have a distinct advantage over you in the marketplace. And that's what you get when you go through training and coaching and development for yourself and for your team. Having no playbook is the same as having one and not using it. And knowing what you need to do and not doing it is the same as not knowing. It doesn't get you the outcome that you need. And especially small sales organizations, don't spend enough time thinking about how do I develop this process. And you can go to somebody like Todd in High Trust Selling, which I would endorse just on principle, knowing what Todd teaches. It's aligned and it's principle-based and it's character-based. It's about things that you can do to be somebody worth buying from. But you've got to have those plays so that you know what's the outcome. What are you doing when you're with a client? So let's talk about how we create a playbook for you. The first thing you need to do is write down your sales process. If you don't know what that process is, then what I would suggest to you is you reverse engineer it. You start looking at deals that you've won and you work backwards. What were the steps that I took? And from my experience, most of the value that you create and what allows you to make the second half of the sales process easy is doing really good work in the first half. It's really getting to know and understand your client. It's developing the trust that allows you to get close to them and understand their needs. Todd said impenetrable relationships. You've got to get to the point where you're trusted enough that you know exactly how to help them and they're going to listen to you and take your advice. So what does it look like when you target? Who are the targets that you're looking for? What does it look like when you qualify? How do you ensure that you're spending time with people who can actually help you get to your goal and who you can create value for? There needs to be a match there. What do you do when you do a diagnosis? How do you figure out what people really need? And then what do you do for presentations and proposals? And you probably have a few more stages after this. There's some acquisition stages and some closing stages. But if you sit down and write that down, what's step 1, what's step 2, what's step 3, you can start to build out the framework for a process to say, here's how I go from target to close. What's that process look like? And if you document it by writing it down, you can continually reinform it with your experience in the world, and you can say, hey, this deal is a little sketchy. Here's what I think went wrong. Here's what I recognize needs to change. The second piece about creating this is to write down your real and imagined dialogue. One thing we do, I'm a speaker. I'm a paid professional speaker, and people say, wow, that was a great line, and I really love what you said, because it was the first time they heard that line. It was the 75th time I said that line. It's rehearsed. You do the same thing. You've picked up things that work. You've picked up dialogue. You found out a way to say things that make sense to the client that they can buy. You need to write down that dialogue, and you need to share it. And if you don't have the dialogue, you need to work on that, because we trade in ideas and we trade in trust, and language is the tool that we use to communicate those things. You need to actually capture the dialogue. What do you say? I'm going to give you an example of that, or at least I'm going to riff on one, and maybe we'll ask if we can see if we can drag Todd in here to play with me on that, and we'll talk about some dialogue. And absolutely, you're only going to get 4 or 5 objections. I've never really seen more than that in any business I've been in. You're going to get a price objection. You're going to get a time objection. You're going to get an interest objection. You need to write down the language and capture those objections in your playbook. When your people hear an objection, or when you hear it, you should know immediately what your response is going to be and how you're going to help that client or that prospect resolve the concern that they have in their mind. These are the things that absolutely have to go into a playbook, and I'll share a little bit more on that with you. I'll pause here, though, and let Dave pop in if he wants to. Dave?
I'll pop in.
It took me a
Todd.
second. Sorry about that. It took me a, yeah, pop in, Todd.
Todd beat you.
No, I think that that Anthony, you're right on, and this whole idea of the law of the dress rehearsal is practicing your lines elevates your performance. And most loan officers lose 5, 10, maybe 15 grand a month because they don't know how to deal with the objections that you get, whether they're objections from a person that you want to set an appointment with to have them become a business partner like an agent, or with buyers. And so I would write the 5 to 7 down, and Dave, I've got 7 with answers on the club website I'm happy to share, but I would write these down, and your game plan won't work unless you practice that play over and over and over again. And as soon as you get good with the 5 to 7 objections that are out there, call reluctance goes away. You don't have fear of follow-up. You have a whole shift in your psychological mindset, and people aren't ready for it. And when you come up with a great response, you win the business.
It is confidence, Todd. You're right. And when you know when you know how the script goes and you know how the story ends, the confidence level goes up tremendously. And you've done this before. You just need to capture it. I usually come up with 5. You've got 7. I want to see what the 2 I'm missing are. But there generally aren't too many. And once you know them, you know the script and you're ready to play. I'm going to run through a few more things I believe should be documented in your playbook. You've got a business strategy, and your customers and your advisor relationships that you have, the people that you're working with, need to know why you're different and how you're different. And you need to have a document that describes what do you do different and why. I mean, one of the things for me personally, when people hire me as a speaker, they say Anthony owns multiple businesses. How does he manage to handle his time? And what they're really saying is, what does he do? And one of the differentiators for me is I built a $45 million business myself. What I teach, I still own that business. and I'm a partner in a number of other businesses. But this isn't theory for me. This is practical application. And when I speak to sales groups and sales organizations, what makes me different is I'm not a guy that came out of a consulting firm with a theory. I'm a guy that's a practitioner. I play the game like you do. But you've got to be able to answer the question very succinctly. What is it that you do different and why? How does that make you different in a way that makes a difference for me as your buyer? And you need to be able to tell people that. You need really rock-solid language. I love the law of the dress rehearsal. You go through this and you practice the words so it comes out very naturally. And one thing I'll add to this, just a point that I've learned over time, you're going to get pigeonholed, or at least your buyers are going to try to pigeonhole you and say, what's the one thing that makes you different? And there's never one thing that makes you different. It's normally a combination of things that you do different that allow you to really differentiate yourself, and you have to be able to talk about those. You do need to document each plan. One of the things that I would challenge you to do as you think about your process, buyers always go through the same cycle. They become dissatisfied. They start to recognize their needs. Once they recognize their needs, they start to evaluate their options. Once they start to evaluate their options and they start to decide what they want, they start to resolve their concerns. They go through that sketchy part at the end where they're trying to decide, am I safe? Is this a good decision? Am I going to look good? You create value for your clients at every stage of that process. You create value by helping them become dissatisfied and understanding that they can do better when they're not dissatisfied. When they are dissatisfied, you help them recognize their needs. What's it going to take to get them a better outcome? When they evaluate options, you create value for them by showing them what's available to them, the range of choices. And you also create value for them by showing how you're different and how you're going to get them the very best result. And at the end, when they're trying to resolve concerns, you provide them with proof and you help them feel safe and help them avoid risk. That's what you do. So I would challenge you to think about, as you look at your process and your plays, what is it that you're doing that creates value for the client, and how does that allow them to say yes to the commitment you're asking for? Because you're asking for a commitment, but you've got to earn the right to that commitment by creating value in every interaction. And we're back to dialogue here. What words do you use to demonstrate that value, and what words do you use to ask for that commitment? And it's important that you write those down. And ultimately, again, at the end, you should document the objections you get. Is it a price objection? What proof do you give them to help them through that? Is it a risk objection? How do you show them that they're safe and that it's more risky not to make the decision that you're asking them to make than it is to retain the status quo? All of this needs to be documented in your playbook so that you know how you're operating and that you're doing everything possible to successfully move from target to close with your prospects, and so that your people do too. I'll see if Dave or Todd or both want to come back in here.
Yeah, no, I've got something to share here. So the first one, how are you different? I just challenge everybody, I mean, write that down, but then I challenge you to really read it and really think deeply, because I've seen a lot of loan officers document this. I've seen a lot of loan officers say things, and I still, when I go through it, it sounds like blah, blah, blah. It sounds like every other loan officer. I close rates on time. I'm available 24 hours. I've been in the business for over 20 years. I just really challenge folks to, what is really different? And then the other piece of that is not only, how are you different, but make it so that it's not just words. Make it so that when you tell someone your unique value proposition, you can show them and you can tell a story that's incredibly relevant to make it real. Because that's another challenge a lot of loan officers have in today's market, is they have unique value propositions. But in order to get a realtor to go, okay, I understand that, I get that, and I actually believe it, that's a whole other thing. That's difficult. So again, everybody on this call, you're a mortgage coach member. One of the things that you can do that's different than every other loan officer when it comes to talking to a realtor, you can make the claim that I can help you improve your home buyer conversion rate. And I can save you time. Let me show you how I do that. It's real. There is a tangible way in the way that your business practices are different than other loan officers. It's a promise that's unique, and it's a promise that you can demonstrate within a matter of minutes. You can actually, pull up your mobile app while you're meeting with the client. Don't tell them how cool your mobile app is and talk about the technology of your mobile app. Tell them a story. Say, here's an example of a home buyer that was referred to me by a top realtor, and you're leveraging technology to tell a story. that makes your value proposition real. So I just want to make sure everybody really challenges yourself to come up with something different and make sure whatever is different, you can demonstrate it with a story immediately. Todd, anything you want to pile on there?
Yeah, I'm going to get just really specific on this. I think Anthony is right on the money, and I think far too often loan officers don't even contemplate the words that they are actually using or saying. And I think one of the best thoughts on the planet is using words to differentiate. So if I'm trying to get the attention of a real estate agent, I can actually say somehow in the body of my conversation or my letter that, you know, I want to help you help your buyers optimize the home buying experience. And because I use a tool called a total cost analysis, it's not uncommon for me to save your home buyer tens of thousands of dollars in unnecessary expense over the life of their owning a home. That's an example of using words, using a tool that have embedded commands in them that get people to start to understand and feel good about the experience. You know, agents, if they ever have a buyer who says they already have a lender and it's not an edge user, it's not one of the people on this call, you know, they need to put words into their script. I think it's great that you've already had a conversation with a lender. Let me ask you a quick question. Did that lender do a total cost analysis for you? The answer 99% of the time is going to be no. And so then the loan officer can say, well, maybe we should have a conversation with that buyer, provide a second opinion, ensure your commissions, and then give the buyer the choice to use me or whomever they already know. Those are the kinds of conversations that just blow agents away and put the loan officer in the driving seat. So I'm right with Anthony, man. Words rule. Words.
Are you going to give me all that, Todd, for $99 if I show up at a meeting?
Times 100% more than that, Anthony. That was just 4 minutes. I've got 3.5 hours.
All right. Well, if you don't show up there, you're criminally negligent for not paying the $99. That just made somebody money. I heard a register ring as you were saying it. I mean, that's it's spot on. It's perfect language, and what Todd said is right. It's differentiating and it's value creating. And, you're showing them there's tens of thousands of dollars for us to reclaim and create value here, and that's how we're going to create these lifelong relationships. That was awesome. I'm going to zip forward to referrals, and I know that this is a big part of your business, and I want to maybe flip something on you. If you're not doing this way, maybe I can share this with you. I've got a client in the travel business. They're the largest independent private travel agency, I think, in the world, called Travel Counselors out of the UK. And they were doing a terrible job with referrals. And I think, again, we go back to language and confidence in what they're doing. They're huge value creators but don't ask enough. And here's what I did to help them drive up their referral rate. We started asking for the referral during the very first engagement and interaction with the buyer. And it was uncomfortable for people for a while. But what we did is we started again with the idea of language. And we captured it in a playbook so everybody had the language that they could refer to and look back to so they were comfortable and confident. But we started by saying, you know, I've explained to you how I create value, but what I want to ask is that if I create the kind of value that I described to you and I do a really good job, at the end, I'd like to be able to ask you for a few references of other people who would appreciate that kind of value. If I can prove myself to you, would it be okay to ask you for those references at the end of this process? And now I've asked for the commitment early before the sale goes on, and they've committed to it. And it's very easy afterwards to come back and say, I hope this was exactly what I told you it would be. Is it? And they're going to say yes. And then you say, remember when I asked about referrals, can you share with me the name of a couple people who would enjoy the same kind of value that I created for you? Can you share a couple names with me? And just doing this, just setting it up so that we ask before and afterwards and giving people the language, embedding it in their process and their playbook. This is a play that we run. It's a standard play. If you're a football fan, this is just handing off the ball or another pass play. We run it over and over and over again, and it's driving their business. I'll tell you just a little bit about what I can share with you. They're having double-digit growth in an industry that's shrinking. And the last time I spoke to them in England at the end of last year, one of their largest competitors, Thomas Cook, laid 2,000 people off and shut down a couple hundred locations around the world while they're growing double digits. And it's who you are and it's how you behave. You have to ask for referrals, You have to know the language that works. You have to create the value to deserve it. But all this needs to be embedded in your playbook. I'll pass it back over and let you guys riff on that for a minute.
Oh, I think you're crushing it, my friend, and you're giving lots of value. I love bringing in experts from outside of our space to deliver value the way that you're doing it. I would throw it out there to the mortgage coach community. I've received a couple emails. Dylan Kramer, power user mortgage coach, said this is a huge win. So getting feedback live. If anybody wants to raise their hand, I can unmute someone. If you want to bring some energy to the call, if you want to bring some perspective to the call, if you have a question for Anthony, this is an opportunity to raise your hand, and I will bring you in. Lynette, I have unmuted you. Lynette, did you have a question or a comment? Lynette? All right, I am remuting you. I'm lowering your hand. So if anybody does have a question, jump in. By the way, a couple questions that have come in, Anthony. People, you mentioned a couple books at the beginning. They wanted some reminders on what those books are that you mentioned.
Well, how do you say anything about books with Todd on the phone? Pick up High Trust Selling for sure. That thing is all just fundamental principles you have to have. The other two I mentioned are Neil Rackham's Spin Selling, and Spin is a questioning model: situation questions, problem questions, implication questions, and need payoff questions. It's a really good and useful model, especially if you get to the implication part. If you just start understanding why something needs to change, it's easier to help buyers. But I will tell you, my experience with that book is there's one little section in the book that no one has ever talked about, with the exception of maybe me. Page 65 to 67, what Rackham uncovered in going on 35,000 sales calls with Xerox and IBM reps was that the reps that succeeded never left an interaction with a client without scheduling the next interaction that moved the process forward. And he called it in advance. And basically what I've always done in building processes and playbooks is to say, what are the commitments that move you from one stage to the next, and how do you use the language and the value creation that you do to ensure that you get that advance? Because what happens is salespeople make really nice calls, they have really nice conversations, and you do too with realtors and lenders in your space, and they say, you had a great call, and then I'll come in and say, what's the next step that they committed to take? And they go, well, you know, they said they get back to me sometime. That's called a continuation, and it means maybe they'll get back to you, or more than likely you're going to email them 67 times and leave them 32 voicemails and still not get another connection with them. You're better off knowing what commitment you need, embedding it in that playbook, and then asking for that commitment. The second book was a book for managers called Major Account Sales Strategy. It's more for a complex sale. But if you do have big, complex sales worth millions of dollars, it's a very useful kit for leading a team through those complex sales. Spin Selling was the 1988, Major Account Sales Strategy, 1989. These are old books, but they're still extremely relevant.
Yeah, no, both books that I've read, and over my tenure as a sales executive, I consider them core foundational books. Again, my advice to the mortgage coach community, Todd's book, High Trust Selling, is foundational as any book you could ever read as a mortgage professionals. If you don't have it, if you haven't read it, put it at the absolute top of your list. As everybody knows on this call, I have been evangelizing the Challenger sale. I think in the mortgage industry, and kind of my spin around it, and would love to riff with you on this, Anthony, is that the mortgage industry, we were all taught that the path to success is relationship selling. And again, I think the book, Challenger Sale, authors always kind of exaggerate to make a point, and sometimes it actually gets kind of annoying. But they did make a point, and I do believe in that fundamental concept of tailor, ask great questions, teach, show people something different, and challenge, control the sale. A lot of what you talked about. And so I do think that it's a contemporary framework that does make a lot of sense. Do you have any particular perspectives? I know you've done some blog posts about it, and you and I have talked a little bit about it, but anything you want to say about the Challenger sale while we're talking?
Yeah, it's an important work, and Matt and Brent are friends, and I wrote 2 posts, I think one last Friday and one last Saturday about insight-based selling because it's all the rage, and I wrote a newsletter this past week about this idea that there's right and wrong, and it kind of gets away from principles. But here's what they've done. The Challenger sale says you need to know something. You've got to have some insight that you can come and share with a client that makes you relevant, that makes you that trusted advisor. Now, where I part ways with Matt and Brent, and they know this because I've told them directly, and I flew to Washington, D.C. to interview them on video for their clients, and they know how I feel about this. All things being equal, relationships win. All things being unequal, relationships still win. And your job is to make all things unequal by creating impenetrable relationships like Todd said. But how you do that now is you create value. And that means you've got to have some chops. You've got to know things. You've got to know how to help them get better business results. And that's the part that Challenger sort of lays out very clearly. You better come in with some insight that you can teach. You better be able to tailor it to that client's specific needs. And the sales reps that succeed today are the ones that do take control of the process. And we hear all this stuff out there in the world about, well, the buyer's got their own process, and they're doing all this research on the internet. And, I tell sales organizations this, I'll say it here. If you are at a disadvantage when it comes to knowledge about your business because your client has the internet, you better try a hell of a lot harder to get some insight about your business if they can learn everything that you know and have felt and discovered and the value that you've created for clients. If they can get that from the internet, we're irrelevant. But that's up to you as an individual. You've got to study. You've got to read. You've got to share your experiences, and that's where you get these chops and insight. It's a combination of business acumen and situational knowledge. And if a buyer can go out and look at the website, they can read something, but what they read does nothing to create value in the way that a really sharp rep with chops, and what you guys are talking about. Do you have the language? Do you have the technology to come in and drive greater value for the client? They're not getting that kind of a conversation from the web. And I hear all this, I tease them about, we hear the buyer's 67% through the buying cycle. And I keep saying, why not 117% through the buying cycle? How do you figure that out, what percentage? There's not one buying cycle. People buy in different ways. But your job is to create value wherever you find them in that process. And Challenger's a really good model for saying, you don't know what you don't know, and I'm going to give you some insight and some ways to think about your business that are going to allow you to perform better for your clients. And that makes it a super relevant book for the time we live in now, and it should be required reading.
Yeah, so let's do this. I mean, we've got about 15 minutes left. I want no one on this call at the end of this call to have an excuse not to know how to document their process. I mean, obviously, Todd's got, amazing resources. Here at Mortgage Coach, we've got an amazing tool that will help you tailor, teach some new insight to a client that is just a bullseye for them. So I want to make sure there's no excuse for anybody to go, oh, I don't know what to do. So if you could kind of finish unpacking that. I also know that you have an outline of what it would look like for everybody to do that. Let's make sure we unpack that. And then I want to close the call with just kind of a challenge around, hey, Mortgage Coach members, you're all on this call. We all have similar values. You have similar whys. You're paying a lot of money, or your company and your CEO is paying a lot of money for you to be on this call and to be part of it. Let's document some of the recipes of success, some of the plays of success together. So I see you changed your screen. What are we looking at here, Anthony?
You're looking at a sample play. I just threw something up on the screen, and I scrubbed it so I could show you what an outline might look like. And a play starts with identifying what play you're running and then what's the outcome. And I threw this up, and you can make sense of it, and you can normalize it for your industry and your space. But the way it works, you don't make any call. You don't have any interaction with a client that doesn't start with an outcome. What are you trying to do? And in qualifying, we're trying to determine that the target broadly meets our guidelines. And then here we get to this part I put in bold about commitment gaining. I don't want to qualify someone, and I don't want to have that conversation and have it go well and not know at the end that I failed unless I get an agreement for a discovery meeting, a face-to-face visit. That's one example. If you do everything that the play describes and you leave without the commitment, you did not complete the play. So we'll go back to football. This is handing them the ball and losing 2 yards. If you didn't get the play, it's because you didn't create enough value, if you didn't get the commitment, rather. This is where it starts. What's the outcome and what's the commitment I need to know that I successfully moved this forward. And then you probably want to give yourself some description. We qualify because we're trying to make sure that the client meets our guidelines. We want to make sure that the way that we create value for them is the right thing for them and that they have the ability to recognize that value and that they'll pay for our solution. And I threw some diagnostic questions in here. This is just really general stuff, but you want to ask yourself before you go into the call, what do you know? What's the demographic of this customer? Who's your point of contact? Are they a decision maker or a decision influencer? I'm thinking of maybe a lender. What's their current protocols? What are they doing to figure out what they do now? What are their priorities? Do you know this? Have you read their website? Have you read their annual report if you're calling on a big bank as a partner or whatever you're looking at? Do they belong to a particular buying group? What do you know? And then what stage are they in? Are they in a discovery stage? Do they raise their hand to you because they're dissatisfied? Are they evaluating options? Did they raise their hand because they're trying to find viable choices? You want a set of diagnostic questions that say, before I go into that engagement, I'm prepared to create value for that prospect or client right now. And then you should have some tools. Maybe you've got a pre-call planner. Maybe you've got a qualifying checklist or some tool that you use to say, if I can't say yes to these questions or check those boxes, then this isn't going to be a qualified buyer for me, and I need to get out and save my time for somebody who can buy. And then I had to scrub this because it belongs to somebody else, but you need sections where you have the planned dialogue. How do you begin that engagement? What are the questions that you ask to ensure that you do find out whether or not they're qualified in this particular play? And what's the planned dialogue you use in the second half here to ask for that commitment? What do you say to gain the commitment when this is over? And then you probably want some best practices, and you probably want some quotes to add to this book. Pull something out of Todd's book, pull something out of a blog post and put them here to remind you of how important it is to qualify and that you've got this kind of a play. But this would be a sketch, and maybe you can get qualifying on one page, or maybe you can get it on a half a page. But the more work you do here and the more you have language that sounds like the language that Todd used, the better success you're going to have when you're sitting down face-to-face with your clients or prospects.
So the only feedback, first of all, thank you for sharing this. Really appreciate it. For Mortgage Coach members to connect some of Anthony's language with my language where he has planned dialogues, to me, have planned stories, market relevant stories where you have helped a client. The only category that I like to add to a play is to have a checklist, at the end. Have a checklist so that you can literally kind of post sales call, audit yourself and go, did I do this, did I do this, did I do this, did I do this? But this is fantastic. I hope that, this gave you some structure, some insight. Anybody who answered, I don't have documentation, there's at least you know what to do. Whether or not you're going to take the time to do this, that is truly up to you. And anybody who has documentation, hopefully we have inspired you to fine-tune that documentation. I would encourage anybody who thinks that you've done a nice job of documenting some of your plays, share them with me, Mortgage Coach, dave@mortgagecoach.com. Just like I am collecting why statements, why loan officers are using Mortgage Coach, why you believe that it's a valuable tool to deliver value to realtors and home buyers. I'm collecting those. I would also love to collect some of your moves. So Anthony, continue. It looks like you have another slide up here, although it's not in presentation mode.
I'll zip through it real quick, and I'll put us in presentation mode first. Just a quick story. When you attend meetings like this, you've got to leave and you've got to go back and take action. And I'll just share one story. I spoke to a group last year, and I'd spoken to them the year before. And the year before, a sales rep came up to me and she said, I'm doing $1 million a year and I want to double it to $2 million. And I said, that's wonderful. And she said, I don't believe what you said up there about prospecting, about building my funnel, about these things on running plays, but I want to do another $1 million anyway. And I said, I'll be very, very direct with you here. The difference between $1 million and $2 million is what you're willing to change about what you're doing now. And you can come to a training like the trainings that I give, and you can sit there and listen, and you can decide what you agree or disagree with and pick what you want. But unless you're willing to change something that you're doing now, you're never going to produce another result. Well, I saw her again last year. She did another $1 million, which is a really nice number for her to do, but she's nowhere near $2 million because she's not willing to change. And when you go through these meetings or when you attend Todd's workshop for $99, you're going to hear things. The difference between your result right now and the result that you want is your willingness to take action on those. Make a playbook. You don't have to be perfect. You don't even have to be right. You just have to be directionally right. But start figuring out what those plays look like and make sure that you use them as the foundation of what you're doing. Get with smart people and rehearse the plays. There's no reason to show up and have the language that you use with a prospect be the first time either one of you has ever heard that language before. You get a chance to play with it and tweak it. And if you hear somebody like Todd, and I think this call is recorded, if you don't go back and listen to the recording and just steal Todd's language, you're missing an opportunity. If I was in your space, I would already have stolen Todd's language exactly as he said it, and then I'm going to use that language because it works. And then live this. Live out of the playbook. Because if you live out of the playbook and you run the plays correctly, like Todd said, you've got 85% of salespeople not operating correctly because they don't have a playbook and they're not sure where they're supposed to be. Manage to that process and manage to those commitments, because selling is really a linking together from commitment to commitment to commitment. And once you're able to get those commitments, you move things from target to close successfully and quickly. And that's what I got, Dave.
Well, it's been a fantastic call. We still have a few minutes. I want to do some wrap-ups. If anybody has any questions or comments, don't hesitate to raise your hand. I am going to have time to possibly pull in one or two questions and comments. So, Anthony, if you could confirm when you can see my screen. Can you see it?
I got you now.
Good. So I encourage everybody to connect with Anthony, read his blog. Hopefully you'll see him as a speaker at some of the upcoming mortgage events. I believe that he has tremendous knowledge and insight, and I think anybody who is serious about being a professional at selling, his content's worth watching. Todd had sent me an email while we were talking, just kind of shouting out that he's got a lot of content around, sales processes for loan officers, whether it's preparing, positioning, discovering, the actual content as a mortgage professional to deliver value. There's a lot of information in Todd's playbook. At Mortgage Coach, we're here to give you that content. When I asked you what is your playbook to win referrals from realtors, hopefully you guys aren't all going, oh, I don't know. I mean, we know that it's not this. The GFE, every loan officer is delivering it. You need to do it to be compliant. Hopefully, when you look at your playbook and you look at how you're delivering a deliverable to the client, it's more than this. It's more than a fee worksheet. Still, the most common way that mortgage professionals deliver advice is with a yellow pad. That's not a consistent wow. And still, loan officers are what I call rate hacking, where they're just saying, hey, I get you this rate or that rate. Everybody on this call, guys, you've got a great way to deliver advice to home buyers, whether it's on their mobile device, making it visual for them. You've got a great way of looping in the realtor so that the home buyer is getting this amazing experience. The realtor clicks on it on their desktop, their mobile. You're saving them time. So when you make your unique value proposition, you can show your unique value proposition. It's when your claims and your language aligns with an experience. So guys, you all have edge. Everybody on this call has an amazing tool to deliver an amazing play. You just need to document that play, because there's a lot of things you need to do outside of Mortgage Coach, questions that need to be asked, content that needs to be delivered, insights, but we're here to help you guys. Every Tuesday morning, we're here to deliver this call. Todd Duncan, is going to be in 10 cities over the next several months. Chicago, Boston, New York, Orlando, Houston, San Francisco, Northern California, Southern California, Phoenix. So he's everywhere. And you all also have access to the Mortgage Mastery Club. So hopefully this call has been valuable, where we have shared ideas. Tomorrow's call or Thursday's call, if you need to know how to put a video on an edge alert, we'll show you how to do that. Anything you need to do that's technical within our platform, we're there for you. So Anthony, as we wrap up today's call, any parting words or comments, my man?
No, thank you for allowing me to be here and share this. And if I can do anything for any of your members, you can reach out to me. It's thesalesblog.com. There's a contact page. If you shoot me a note, I'm happy to share whatever I can to make sure that you succeed here.
Definitely, and again, I just want to pull that up, Anthony, really quick. And Anthony, I recommend that you put that in the Mortgage Coach comment section. So again, everybody, there is Anthony's email. There is a link to his blog. Do not miss out on it. It's fantastic content for anybody serious about being a successful mortgage executive. I'm a huge fan. I appreciate the time that you took to prepare for the call, to deliver all this insight on today's call, Anthony, and I look forward to having you back and hopefully sharing a stage with you this year.
Sounds great. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Take care, everybody. Have a fantastic week.